What happens when a legendary icon walks into what she thinks is a friendly chat and instead finds herself ambushed by a panel determined to tear her down? You won't believe what unfolds when Cher steps onto the View set, expecting support but walking straight into a calculated attack that would leave viewers stunned and the entertainment world buzzing. This isn't just another celebrity interview gone wrong. This is a masterclass in how daytime television can turn toxic in seconds, with one of music's biggest legends caught in the crossfire of political warfare and personal vendettas that have been brewing behind the scenes for months. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below because you're not going to believe what unfolds when these hosts decide to go after someone who's been fighting battles longer than some of them have been alive. The atmosphere in the View studio was already thick with tension before Cher even walked through those doors. What started as what should have been a celebration of her latest project quickly devolved into something far more sinister. The hosts had clearly done their homework, but not the kind you'd expect for honoring a guest. They'd come armed with ammunition, ready to ambush one of entertainment's most beloved figures in front of a live studio audience. As Cher settled into the guest chair, her trademark confidence radiating through the studio. She had no idea that Whoopi Goldberg and the panel had essentially laid a trap. The opening pleasantries felt forced, with smiles that didn't quite reach their eyes and compliments that sounded rehearsed. Cher, ever the professional, played along. But even she couldn't have anticipated what was brewing beneath the surface. "So, Cher, we're so excited to have you here," Whoopi began, her voice carrying an undertone that suggested this conversation wasn't going to stay in safe territory for long. "You've been so vocal about your political views lately, and we wanted to talk about some of the statements you've been making." The shift was immediate and palpable. What had started as a promotion for Cher's latest work suddenly became something entirely different. The other hosts leaned in, their body language shifting from welcoming to predatory. Joy Behar's eyes lit up with the kind of gleam that suggested she'd been waiting for this moment, while Sunny Hostin straightened in her chair, clearly prepared for battle. Cher's expression changed subtly, her decades of experience in the entertainment industry immediately alerting her to the shift in energy. "Well, I've always been honest about what I believe," she replied carefully, but you could see her guard going up in real time. "Honest, yes," Whoopi continued, her tone growing sharper. "But some might say reckless. Your recent comments about certain political figures have raised some eyebrows, and frankly, some of us at this table find them concerning." The audience could feel the temperature in the room dropping. This wasn't the warm, welcoming environment The View typically tried to project with their celebrity guests. This felt like an intervention, or worse, an ambush designed to make Cher look bad in front of millions of viewers. "Concerning?" Cher's voice carried a note of disbelief. "I'm sorry, but I thought I was here to talk about my new music, not to be lectured about my constitutional right to express my opinions." Joy Behar couldn't contain herself any longer. "But Cher, when you have the platform you have, don't you think you have a responsibility to be more measured? Some of the things you've said on social media have been pretty inflammatory." The trap was becoming clearer. They weren't interested in celebrating Cher's achievements or promoting her work. They had brought her on to publicly shame her for having the audacity to speak her mind about political issues. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Here was a panel of women who built their careers on expressing their political opinions, now trying to silence another woman for doing the exact same thing. Cher's legendary temper was starting to simmer beneath the surface. "Inflammatory? I'm sorry, but I've been fighting for civil rights and social justice since before some of you were born. I've earned the right to speak my mind, and I'm not going to sit here and be told I should stay in my lane by people who do exactly what I do every single day." The audience began to murmur, sensing the growing tension. Whoopi tried to regain control, but her approach only made things worse. "Nobody's asking you to stay in your lane, Cher. We're just suggesting that maybe, just maybe, you should think before you tweet." "Think before I tweet." Cher's voice rose slightly, her famous fiery personality beginning to show. "Are you kidding me right now? I've been thinking about these issues longer than you've been on television. I don't need a lecture from you about social responsibility." Sunny Hostin decided to jump in, clearly feeling emboldened by the confrontational atmosphere. "But Cher, surely you can see how some of your statements could be seen as divisive. We're living in such a polarized time, and celebrities with your influence need to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. The condescension was unmistakable. Here were these hosts, treating a woman who had been a cultural icon for over 5 decades like she was some naive newcomer who didn't understand the weight of her words. Cher's eyes flashed with anger, and anyone who knew her work knew that this was not a woman who backed down from a fight. Part of the problem? Cher repeated, her voice dropping to a dangerous level. Let me tell you what's part of the problem. Part of the problem is people who think they can tone police others while they themselves say whatever they want. Part of the problem is this idea that celebrities should shut up and sing, but only when it's convenient for you. The other hosts exchanged glances, clearly realizing they might have pushed too far, but it was too late to back down now. Whoopi, perhaps feeling like she needed to assert her authority as the moderator, pressed forward with what would prove to be a critical mistake. Cher, we're not trying to silence you. We're trying to have a conversation about responsibility and consequences. When you make certain statements, there are real-world implications. Real-world implications? Cher laughed, but there was no humor in it. Do you think I don't know about real-world implications? Do you think I haven't faced consequences for speaking my mind my entire career? I've been canceled and boycotted and criticized for decades. And I'm still here because I refuse to be silenced by people who think they know better. The tension in the studio was now so thick you could cut it with a knife. The audience was completely silent, watching what was clearly no longer a friendly interview, but a full-scale confrontation between entertainment legends. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every moment of what was becoming television history, but not the kind anyone had planned for. Joy Behar, perhaps sensing that things were spiraling out of control, tried to inject some levity into the situation. Well, we certainly admire your passion, Cher. Maybe we can talk about your new album instead. But it was too late. The damage had been done, and Cher was not the kind of person to let an attack slide just because someone decided they wanted to change the subject. Her response would set the stage for what was about to become one of the most explosive confrontations in daytime television history, and the hosts were about to learn that they had severely underestimated exactly who they were dealing with. My new album. Cher's voice cut through the studio like a blade, her eyes now blazing with the kind of fury that had made her a legend. Oh no, we're not done here. You brought me on this show under false pretenses, and now you want to just move on like nothing happened? That's not how this works. The shift in energy was seismic. Whatever control Whoopi thought she had over the situation evaporated in an instant. The other hosts suddenly looked like deer in headlights, realizing they had awakened something they couldn't contain. Cher had gone from defensive to offensive and decades of experience dealing with industry. Bullies had prepared her for exactly this moment. You want to talk about responsibility? Cher continued, her voice rising with each word. Let's talk about the responsibility of hosts who invite guests onto their show just to ambush them. Let's talk about the responsibility of women who should be supporting other women instead of tearing them down for ratings. Whoopi's face darkened, clearly not appreciating being called out so directly. Now wait just a minute, Cher. Nobody ambushed you. We're having a conversation about a conversation. Cher interrupted, her legendary temper now fully unleashed. This isn't a conversation, Whoopi. This is a hit job, and we both know it. You coordinated this attack, and now you're trying to gaslight me into thinking it's something else. The audience was completely captivated, some looking uncomfortable while others seemed energized by the raw authenticity of what they were witnessing. This wasn't the sanitized, focus group drama they were used to seeing on daytime television. This was real, and it was explosive. Joy Behar, perhaps feeling like she needed to defend her colleague, made the mistake of jumping back into the fray. Cher, I think you're being a little paranoid here. We're just trying to paranoid. Cher whirled on her, eyes flashing. Joy, I've been in this business for 50 years. I know the difference between a legitimate interview and a setup. And this, ladies, is a setup. The producers in the control room were probably having heart attacks, but the cameras kept rolling. This was television gold, even if it wasn't the kind they had planned for. Sunny Hostin, who had been relatively quiet during the escalation, decided to try a different approach. Cher, I think we all need to take a step back here. We're all passionate women, and sometimes passion can lead to misunderstandings. Cher's laugh was sharp and bitter. Sunny, There's no misunderstanding here. You all came at me with prepared talking points designed to make me look bad. You questioned my intelligence, my judgment, and my right to speak my mind. And now you want to call it a misunderstanding. Whoopi was clearly losing patience, her own famous temper starting to show. Cher, you're being dramatic. We ask tough questions of all our guests. If you can't handle that, maybe you shouldn't be in the public eye. The studio went dead silent. Even the audience seemed to collectively hold their breath at the audacity of what Whoopi had just said. Telling Cher, a woman who had survived every conceivable challenge the entertainment industry could throw at her, that she couldn't handle tough questions was like throwing gasoline on a fire. Cher's response was measured but deadly. If I can't handle tough questions? Whoopi, I've been handling tough questions since you were still figuring out how to get into the business. I've been blacklisted, boycotted, criticized, and attacked by people far more powerful than you, and I'm still here. So don't you dare sit there and question my ability to handle anything. The personal nature of the attack had changed everything. This was no longer about political opinions or social media posts. This had become a battle of wills between two strong women, and neither was backing down. The other host seemed frozen, unsure of how to navigate the increasingly hostile territory. Whoopi, clearly feeling challenged, doubled down. Well, if you're so tough, then why are you so upset about a few questions? Maybe the problem isn't us. Maybe the problem is that you know we're right, and you don't want to admit it. The gasps from the audience were audible. Even by the View's standards, this was crossing lines that shouldn't be crossed. But Cher had been in battles like this before, and she knew exactly how to respond. The problem, Whoopi, is that you invited me here under false pretenses, ambushed me with coordinated attacks, and now you're trying to make me the villain when I refuse to play along with your game. But here's what you don't understand. I don't play games. I've never played games, and I'm not about to start now. Joy Behar, perhaps sensing that Whoopi was in over her head, tried to jump in again. Cher, we're all friends here. We're all on the same side politically. We should be able to have these discussions without getting personal. Friends. Cher's voice dripped with disdain. Joy, friends don't set traps for each other. Friends don't coordinate attacks. Friends don't try to humiliate each other on national television. What you did today wasn't friendship, it was betrayal. The word betrayal hung in the air like a weapon. The hosts were clearly rattled, realizing that their plan had backfired spectacularly. Instead of making Cher look bad, they had made themselves look like bullies attacking a respected icon. Sunny Hostin made one last desperate attempt to salvage the situation. Cher, I think there's been a real miscommunication here. We respect you enormously, and we would never intentionally stop. Cher's voice was cold as ice. Just stop. Don't insult my intelligence by pretending this was some kind of accident. You knew exactly what you were doing, and now you're trying to backtrack because it's not going the way you planned. The studio felt like a pressure cooker about to explode. The audience was completely silent, witnessing something that felt less like a television interview and more like a real-time destruction of professional relationships. The cameras captured every moment, every expression, every word that was pushing this confrontation toward its inevitable conclusion. Whoopi, perhaps, realizing she had lost control entirely, made one final attempt to assert her authority. Cher, this is my show, and I won't be spoken to like this. If you can't conduct yourself professionally, then maybe you should leave. The challenge had been issued. The gauntlet had been thrown down. And Cher, icon that she wasn't about to back down from anyone, especially not in front of millions of viewers who were watching this unfold in real time. Her response would determine whether this confrontation would end with apologies and damage control, or whether it would escalate into something that would dominate headlines for weeks to come. Cher stood up slowly, her movement deliberate and powerful. The entire studio seemed to hold its breath as she rose to her full height, her presence commanding every inch of the space. When she spoke, her voice was calm but carried the weight of 5 decades in the entertainment industry. Your show. Cher's voice was dangerously quiet, the kind of calm that preceded a storm. Whoopi, let me tell you something about shows. I've been headlining shows since you were still trying to get your first break. I've sold more records, filled more arenas, and entertained more people than you can even imagine. So don't you dare try to intimidate me by reminding me whose show this is. The audience was completely transfixed. This wasn't just a celebrity spat. This was a masterclass in how to handle bullies, delivered by someone who had been doing it longer than anyone else in the room. Whoopi's face showed a mixture of shock and rage, clearly not expecting Cher to come back at her with such force. And you know what else? Cher continued, her voice growing stronger with each word. You want to talk about conducting myself professionally? Let's talk about professionalism. Professional hosts don't ambush their guests. Professional hosts don't coordinate attacks. Professional hosts don't try to humiliate legends just to score cheap points with their audience. Joy Behar tried one last desperate intervention. Cher, please, let's just… No, Joy. Cher turned to face her directly. We're way past, let's just anything. You all made your choice when you decided to gang up on me instead of treating me with the respect I've earned. And now you want to act surprised when I refuse to play the victim? The power dynamic in the room had completely shifted. What had started as the host trying to dominate their guest had turned into Cher systematically dismantling each of them with surgical precision. Her decades of experience dealing with industry politics and media manipulation were on full display. Sunny Hostin made one final attempt at diplomacy. Cher, we never meant for this to become personal. We just wanted to have a discussion about what, Sunny? Cher's eyes flashed. About how I should think. About how I should speak. About how I should use my platform. You wanted to have a discussion about silencing me. And when I refused to be silenced, you made it personal. Whoopi, clearly feeling like she was losing control of her own show, stood up to match Cher's energy. Nobody's trying to silence you, Cher. But if you're going to come on television and make wild statements. Cher laughed, but there was no humor in it. Whoopi, everything I've said has been based on facts, on research, on genuine concern for this country. But you've decided that because I don't say it the way you want me to say it, it's somehow wild? That's not your call to make. The confrontation had reached its boiling point. The studio felt electric with tension, the audience completely silent. As they watched two entertainment legends face off in a way that felt both historic and deeply personal. The cameras captured every moment, every expression, every word that was reshaping the landscape of daytime television. You know what's really wild? Cher continued, her voice building to a crescendo. What's wild is that a group of women who built their careers on speaking their minds are now trying to tear down another woman for doing the exact same thing. What's wild is that you thought you could ambush me and I would just sit here and take it. What's wild is that you underestimated exactly who you were dealing with. Whoopi's face was flushed with anger and embarrassment. Cher, if you don't like how we do things here, then maybe you should leave? Cher finished for her. Oh, I'm leaving, Whoopi. But not because you're kicking me off. I'm leaving because I refuse to sit here and be disrespected by people who should know better. I'm leaving because I have more important things to do than be attacked by cowards who gang up on their guests. The word cowards hit like a physical blow. The other hosts visibly flinched, realizing that this had gone far beyond anything they had anticipated. But Cher wasn't finished. She was about to deliver the kind of exit speech that would be replayed for years to come. You want to know what responsibility looks like? Cher's voice filled the studio, commanding and powerful. Responsibility is standing up for what you believe in, even when it's unpopular. Responsibility is using your platform to fight for people who can't fight for themselves. Responsibility is not backing down when bullies try to silence you. She began gathering her things, her movements deliberate and dignified. What you did today wasn't journalism. It wasn't even good television. It was a coordinated attack on someone who has spent her entire career fighting for the things you claim to care about. And the fact that you don't see the problem with that tells me everything I need to know about who you really are. The studio was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. The audience watched in stunned silence as Cher prepared to leave, her dignity intact despite the attempted character assassination she had just survived. Joy Behar made one last desperate attempt to salvage something from the wreckage. Cher, please, we can work this out. This isn't how we wanted this to go. Cher turned back to face the panel one last time, her expression a mixture of disappointment and resolve. Joy, this is exactly how you wanted it to go. You wanted to make me look bad, and instead, you've shown the world exactly who you are. The only difference is that you thought I would just sit here and take it. She paused, letting her words sink. And before delivering her final blow, I've been fighting battles longer than some of you have been alive. I've survived every attempt to silence me, to diminish me, to make me disappear. And I'm still here. I'll still be here long after people forget about this pathetic attempt to tear me down." With that, Cher walked toward the exit, her head held high and her dignity intact. The cameras followed her every step, capturing what would become one of the most iconic exits in television history. As she reached the edge of the set, she turned back one final time. "And for the record," she said, her voice carrying across the silent studio, "I don't need your approval to speak my mind. I never have, and I never will. The people who matter know who I am and what I stand for. And that's all that counts." The studio doors closed behind her with a finality that echoed through the silence. The hosts sat in stunned silence, clearly realizing that their plan had backfired spectacularly. Instead of diminishing Cher, they had given her a platform to demonstrate exactly why she had remained relevant and powerful for over 5 decades. The audience began to applaud, slowly at first, then building to a standing ovation for the woman who had just shown them what it looked like to stand up to bullies with grace, power, and unwavering dignity. The cameras captured it all: the empty chair where Cher had sat, the stunned faces of the hosts, and the audience's clear approval of how she had handled herself. As the show cut to commercial, one thing was clear: this wasn't just a celebrity walkout. This was a defining moment that would be remembered as the day Cher reminded everyone why legends become legends, not just because of their talent, but because of their refusal to be diminished by anyone, anywhere, at any time.